And welcome to another episode of The Curious Hunter. I must start this video by giving a huge thanks to all the positive feedback that I got from the first episode. I wouldn't be doing more of these if it wasn't because of you guys, so again, much appreciated, and I'm looking forward to more of your insights in the future. Now, let me ask you something. Did you know that in Wilds, monsters have a special wound called a weak point, and you can focus strike it like regular wounds? Okay, but did you know that almost every monster has it? Did you know that Alatrion was not the first monster to have a DPS check? Do you know how other monsters do it? You can find an answer to these questions and more in today's guest channel, Mahnster Hunter. I cannot stress this enough. His content is pure, unadulterated gold. From discussion to educational videos, if you're looking to improve in Mahnster Hunter, even as a newcomer, his content can explain some of the most obscure and complicated mechanics in very simple and beginner-friendly terms. Not only will go over some of the questions of the first episode, but also we'll discuss some of the topics that have become rather heated as of late, such as the underlying problem behind the title update and some of the incoherences behind Wild's design. Let's not wait any longer, let's go! Alright, so Mr. Mahnster Hunter, can you please introduce yourself for today's episode?
Yes, my name is Mahnster Hunter, and I create educational content for beginner to intermediate players in Mahnster Hunter.
Excellent. So this time I think I wanted to mix it up a little bit. I want to ask you a set of quick questions for which I expect some quick answers. Is that okay?
Yes.
All right. So favorite Mahnster Hunter title?
Generations Ultimate.
Favorite weapon?
Switch X.
What do you think is the best Mahnster Hunter fight or fights?
Rathian, White Fatalis, all the Gen Morans, Amatsu, also called Bloodbath Diablos, and Narwa.
Jesus, okay. And what is the monster that you hate the most?
Rathalos, no question.
Hey, what?
That I hate it. I hate that.
All right, it's not what I was expecting, but that's fine. I guess it comes down to preference. All right, perfect. So let's get down to business. To introduce the podcast interview, whatever we call these, do you have a story as to how you got hooked into Mahnster Hunter?
Yes. One of our friends, very close friend in our group, he ended up introducing all of us to the game in 4U. And unfortunately, I guess he unintentionally had carry culture on the brain because he just threw us in the game, made us go straight to hub. He had his full end game gear, and he just kind of played the game for us, and we didn't really enjoy it very much. So after that, we ended up going back to other games, and I came back into the game, and I decided to figure out how it worked for myself, and then I ended up bringing everybody else in.
Right. Well, I guess we're glad you did, because I guess the most similar experience that I could see for that is like the people that help other people with like full Fatalis gear in World, and like they carry them through the whole story, and they never really have any grasp of the game in general, right?
Yeah, I think that experience is very important, because if all you're doing is just running up and following whoever is the lead, you don't really get to understand how the maps work, what the items do, where the monsters are going, and you just you're there for the ride. It's not really an experience.
Yeah, true. Okay then, well, have you enjoyed Wilds?
No.
Just no.
Not at all. Like, and it's funny because I get a lot of comments that are just like, 177 hours in the game. Oh yeah, he enjoyed his time. Like, no, I'm doing this for you guys. Like,
that's also very understandable. I can see that. Yeah. If you could choose, like, what's the Mahnster Hunter game that you would spend time on now? Maybe Ultimate? Generations Ultimate?
Actually, I go between 4 games at the moment. So not only am I playing Wilds, I'm also still playing 3 Ultimate, 4 Ultimate, and Generations. I play Rise here and there, but mostly Wilds for right now for the Switch X guide.
Right, perfect. Well, and where exactly do you find the fun in the game, in Mahnster Hunter?
2 parts, combat and set building. Me personally, I like the design of Mahnster Hunter and like how deliberate everything is. And when you do anything, you technically have to commit to that. And I think that that goes just beyond combat, where everything that you're doing in the village and the hubs where your facilities are there, everything feels like your commitment matters. Mostly, I like making sets that, even if they're kind of gimmicky or even if they're non-meta, I like doing those to make myself comfortable. And then playing well is also a part that I enjoy. So it's just combat and set building.
Yeah. Nice. Interesting. I had the impression because, like, I know that I think you have uploaded some speedruns to the actual, like, rankings or something like that. I'm not sure how that works, but it's interesting to see that you still go for, like, more non-meta sets, even though you have a very, like, optimization approach to the game.
I have like two different ways that I approach the game. There's the I'm going to get this speed run record, and then there's the I'm just trying to do X, Y, and Z. So for myself, particularly, I always say like optimize everything, even your fun. So if you're a new player and you don't really know what to do and you just figure out set building at the very least, optimize to make yourself have fun.
I wish more people could see it that way. That was some bars. I'm gonna say it now, yeah. Like, I feel like today people are doing the opposite all the time. They try to optimize the fun out of the game. It's like, what? You know?
I mean, with all the videos that are just like, this is the best weapon set.
Yeah, no, but it's I guess it's also a cultural thing that is like manifesting more as of late in like the gaming hobby kind of thing. But that's a different topic, I think. Well, do you think that Capcom is doing a good job at helping new players get into the franchise? Uh-oh.
Yes and no. They're doing a very good job at helping people who don't know about the game get into it. They're doing a very terrible job of teaching them how to actually play the game.
I think we're noticing a trend, because this is not the first time I hear something like this. But yeah, I can see what you mean. And would you prefer Capcom then to maybe focus more on a small but hardcore audience?
Honestly, that's a tough question to answer just as much as it is tough to execute, because you have tons of people who limit themselves to the philosophy that you can't please everyone. And I feel like that's a cop out, because you can technically please everybody, right? Especially in a game like this. You can provide for newcomers. You can provide for middle of the road people who just want to beat the game and go off of it. And then you can provide for the people who are hardcore and dedicated. And it's really simple too, because you literally can just have Capcom work on their hardcore Japanese audience as well as trying to appeal to us overseas. But you can do that in three different ways, right? So you can start off the beginning of the game. You can have it accessible for newer players. The middle of the game, or at least like midpoint to late game, you can have it be a little bit more challenging. And of course, you know, in the beginning of the game, you're going to want to have to teach people the mechanics, not so much in their face, like, you know, pause a menu on the screen and then say, you know, press this button to do X. And then you have to wait like 2 seconds before closing off the menu. But instead, like, teach them slowly. Okay, if I hit the monster here, the monster falls over. If the monster, you know, takes enough damage, they get enraged. And then slowly over the course of the game, you just start introducing new threats that challenge that. Kind of like how Spider-Man has your basic peons where you can just beat the mess out of a guy. But then you introduce a riot shield, and then you introduce a bigger guy, and you can't really deal with everybody the same way. Just like that, except you can, and then make an end game that's worth playing for the dedicated players.
Interesting. I really, well, all of this I think comes down to perspective. I agree with a lot of the things that you said. It's just that one of the things that I've been thinking about lately is I saw a video from like Maximilian Dude. Do you know the guy?
Yes.
Okay, so he said something that I think I had never really considered, and is the fact that maybe more in Japan than here, but at least a lot of people of the player base don't even make it past the story mode. So in a way, you think like, okay, so we should have Capcom teach players different ways to approach the game and to get better. But for some people, they just want to be there for the ride. And for them, the ride is the story. And so they don't really get to see everything else that the game has to offer. And it's a bit unfortunate. but it does make me think like, okay, maybe, we have completely different perspectives on what is supposed to be the journey and where it ends. Basically, it can be very different from person to person. So now I'm like, kind of like reconsidering these things a bit more.
That actually gives me a new perspective on it, particularly because you already know I'm more gameplay focused, but it is actually kind of good that you say that, because for me personally, I know that there's a lot of people out there who might have skipped every cutscene in Wilds, and then maybe in the old games that you should just mash A through all the dialogue options. But yeah, I guess you could say that there are people that are there for different reasons, and it is going to be very difficult to account for that, I guess you could say, because I feel like Maximilian's perspective on things, I think that comes from as raw as a newcomer can get, because he like kind of comes in and out, and him bringing up that story point, that's actually pretty good, as well as your perspective on that. I think that is something now you have me reconsidering.
Well, just something like I think it's food for thought. I don't think we can like kind of solve that question for now. It's just something to put out there.
True.
All right. Well, so you did mention that you're not really enjoying Wilds so much, but I do want to know if the content at some point has met your expectations in any way.
You're gonna hate me for saying this.
No,
I didn't expect it to be great, so it kind of met my expectations, if that makes sense.
Oh, so because the bar was very low already.
Oh yeah, the bar was like in hell. So,
oof, okay.
I mean, that's primarily because, like, again, I started in 4, and then I played Generations, and I went back to play the older games. Like, I could probably send you a picture. I literally have every game outside of the IRO games, which I'm trying to collect now, but I've played every single one of them, and to me, I like the familiarity, and for a lot of it, it's like not just down to the UI, but also to the feel of the gameplay. I know people like to call Rise arcadey, but at some point, every Monster Hunter game becomes arcadey, because you come back to the base, you run to the treasure chest, not the treasure chest, sorry, you run to your item chest, you put your items in your equipment or your item pouch, you run to the quest maiden, or if you're in someone else's lobby, you run to the board, post the next quest, immediately into the next quest. And I like the feeling of this. It's got a fantastical cartoony element to it. It's got a nice charm. And then you go from that to World and Wilds, and then as well as the content. The content's the biggest thing for me, right? Like, I don't know. I didn't really have many expectations, because I felt like if we still had slingers, if we still had mantles, if we still had all these features that were present in World, then what's to stop it from literally being the same experience with just a couple things added and a couple things taken away?
We're going to talk about that in a second, actually. Yeah. I'm starting to get FOMO for how much people have brought up Generations Ultimate with the arrival of Wilds. And I'm enjoying Wilds, and now I feel like I should, find a way to try Ultimate. But not sure if that's going to happen. Anyway, you did mention something that reminds me of a question that I had for you. Some people say that Wilds is actually straying too far from the original Monster Hunter formula and design. How do you feel about this?
I wouldn't say it strays too far, but like I said, like their attempt to kind of carry on World's success, I personally feel like they're forgetting what makes Monster Hunter stand out in an action hunting genre. And it feels more like a spectacle than something with substance. And I know a lot of people are going to hate me for that. I get that, because their perspective is different from mine. But whenever I think about how Monster Hunter plays, World and Wilds is quite far from it. And I know a lot of people hated Rise because Rise had its own thing. And most of them don't want to go back to older games because they feel like it's like too anime or it's too not realistic or serious. But as far as it goes, mainline games, I definitely feel like it's going a bit away from the regular formula, especially because I think we know that there's a focus on trying to get more people into the series. But I feel like they're taking it a bit too far, if that's a reasonable thing to say.
I mean, I think it is reasonable. Obviously, it's complicated. I am not a big fan of Path of Exile, but one of the things that one of the developers that was interviewed at some point, one of the things that they said was that when you want to make a new iteration of a game that has already been successful, you have to make risks, and you risk making a lot of people angry, and you risk making changes that a lot of people are not gonna like. But it's like, it's a risk that you have to take, and it doesn't seem like you have any other way around it if you want to make innovation. I think it was a really interesting point of view, at least for their game, because Path of Exile already had a very dedicated community with a lot of set expectations for when Path of Exile 2 came out. And so from the developer point of view, dealing with those expectations, I think, is really difficult. But then obviously the player base is completely entitled to feel that maybe they have done something that kind of has, I don't want to say harmed, but in a way changed the essence or the identity of the franchise that they like. That's completely reasonable, I think.
That's like Rampages and Rise. They took a risk, but it was not calculated.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I guess that's a good example of something that didn't quite hit the mark. But yeah, that's the thing. It's like you have to bring new things to keep the flame alive, and you risk, getting a few people mad by doing so. Obviously, only time will tell what's going to be the result of this. But yeah, something else that I wanted to add to what you said. Well, I did mention that we're going to talk about the different changes and the new mechanics that the game is presenting to the franchise. Just in general, what is your take on focus mode and wounds?
I hate them both. And I'm not talking from a speedrunner perspective. I'll do my thing, but I think I've beat the dead horse. I feel that a lot of Monster Hunter's combat is deliberate. I feel that it's very you have to really hone in on the choices that you make. Your positioning, your knowledge of yourself, your weapon, the monster, the system, everything. Standing on the dunes against Raid Owl, probably not the funnest thing on the planet. But it's I mainly hate focus mode because the game literally requires you to use it, right? And recently, because I've been making the Switch Axe guide, I figured out that, and I guess other people figured this out before me, because I don't really go that in depth with other people when it comes down to reading the thoughts and things like that on Twitter, Reddit, and stuff like that. And I don't really partake in the Mahnster Hunter meta stuff, at least not the Reddit or anything of that nature. But I didn't know it was called focus magnetism, or at least that's what people are calling it, right? Where if you're in focus mode and you're looking dead at the monster, and there's the reticle, right? It's white, and then it turns orange at a certain distance, your attacks will lunge toward the monster. And I put the video up on Twitter, and it really felt bad because on certain weapons, it feels so offensive, right? Because it's for Switch Axe, it already has, I know there's some people out there Switch Axe, it's got great range, it's so mobile. It's not even close. World is, I don't even like World, and World beats out Wild Switch Axe 10-1. And it sucks because a lot of the gap closing and mobility options in the game, not just for Switch Axe, but for plenty of other weapons, they're so drastically reduced, and then they get so drastically increased when you're in focus mode that I felt that in the first hour of playing the OBT. And I went to the menu and I'm like, yo, where's the change this thing? Because I can't be holding the LT and breaking my, having the Raptor claw grip. And then I found toggle. I just toggle things now because if you want me to be in focus mode, fine. I guess that's how you're supposed to take it. Wounds, on the other hand,
pretty much, yeah.
Wounds, I feel they kind of trivialize the game to such a degree because, and I think like, I don't know if you know this channel. It's called False Swipe Gaming. They make a lot of Pokemon videos talking about like competitive aspects and a bunch of things. They have this thing called the Rampardos theory, but like they put like X Pokemon and then they name it like theory. So the Rampardos theory is that having high attack is not always a good thing. And, you know, it's true, right? So when you look at something like Gravios should not be a monster that gets bullied. That is not a monster that you put on the floor for 12 minutes of your like 2-minute hunt, right? And that monster gets torn apart by wounds strictly because you can literally just turn it on, or you do enough damage and then you press one button. The monster is staggered for 12 years depending on your weapon, like Switch Axe, Charge Blade, not Insect Glaive, Dual Blades especially. Switch Axe, Charge Blade, Dual Blades, all of them have super long animations. But when you look at something like Insect Glaive, the guns, that stuff happens like lightning fast. So when you're dogging the monster for like 12 minutes straight just because you did enough damage to open up a wound, like Argveld moves a lot. So it's like every time he finishes an attack, he never has a recovery animation. Like I know that sounds crazy because like most monsters, like Nargacuga does his tail slam, tail stuck in the ground. Zinogre does its suplex or a somersault or whatever, its back is stuck in the ground. Argveld does not stop, right? Like even when it does moves where it slams, it's like chains into the ground and it's got like a 1 second. No, that thing keeps moving. Like right after, it's immediately back to back to back. That small amount of time that you get, you open up a wound, you can stop him from doing anything. The offsets, I'm not against offsets. I think offsets are great, but it's really just focus and wound, because I feel like we should be able to play the game without needing to have focus mode on. We should be able to play and have, I get that, you know, Iceborne introduced that wound mechanic. That sounds like a nice idea, you know, when you had to forcibly open up the wound with the clutch claw attack. But in this game, I feel like they could have just stopped at opening up the wound after doing a certain amount of damage, keeping a part soft until you break it. That's fine. Because at this point, I'm not even gonna lie to you, even as a speedrunner myself, I don't keep up with monster flinch thresholds. I don't keep up with monster topple thresholds. All I know is if I hit off a focus strike on Gormagala's wing, it's falling over. If I flinch its head, it's gonna flinch, right?
It's a good, I mean, I agree with this. I think that this is Capcom's way, like this is my theory about it. This is Capcom's way of closing the gap between like these more nuanced mechanics and the average player, because it's like, and I see this happening with people that are new to the game. I have some friends that I play in multiplayer sometimes, and when they see a wound, what they understand now is that the monster is going to be CC'd, right? So they break it, and they even say on chat like, no, he's falling now, right? Because they are breaking the wound. And that gives you like the idea that they think this is happening because wounds are doing this so frequently. So the observation that they do is this has nothing to do with thresholds in breaking parts on it or anything. It's just that wounds will allow me to topple the monster, right? So that's the conclusion that they arrive at. And it kind of, I think that it is supposed to make players start to notice that breaking parts can be a valuable interaction, but then you have this other situation where they arrive to other conclusions that are not really what is going on, right? But then it's also making more casual players have this. I think the thing about wounds is that it's one of the few things that give the more casual player a moment where they can feel that they do have control over the fight. You know how sometimes you can be like fighting the monster and just like improvising, right? Trying to dodge, position yourself, try to punish the monster. But then wounds, it's like this button that will, it's like a freebie basically. It's like you press focus strike, and for a moment you're in control now. I'm guessing that's what they were going for, but everything you said, basically, I tend to agree with, because it's I don't know. I feel like it's taking away from these more nuanced interactions that you can have sometimes that require awareness, but now you might not even bother to learn them.
I think that does it in and of itself. It does itself a disservice, primarily because, like you said, you know, there's a lot of things that go on in this game that people should know, and I think about something far off in the future, right? What happens in the expansion? Do they overcorrect and they try to like make wounds less overwhelming? Do they stick to their guns and just try to make the monsters thresholds like way higher? And then I think about the next Monster Hunter game that comes out that doesn't have focus mode, that doesn't have wounds. Is it going to have to retrain the brains of these people, or will they not give it a shot strictly because it's not what they've come to know?
Yeah. I think that you know how everybody's saying that the game is like too easy now? I feel like they are obviously allowed to think that, but I feel that this situation creates well, I personally don't like Primordial Malsino. A lot of people like him. I kind of feel that he dips into bad design. That's my opinion personally. And he's a product of people saying that Rise was too easy. That's my perspective on it. They were like, okay, no, we're just gonna have this monster go completely apeshit for a good like minute at the end of the fight, just because they dared to say that the game was too easy, and we're gonna risk this be bad design. We don't care anymore. Like that's how...
and it's funny to think about because you think about longsword counters, you think about charge blade blocks, you think about silk bind counters, and if you try to, yeah, we've seen longsword players do it, right? But like, if you're a new or you're like intermediate or whatever, and you try to hold on during that onslaught, you're probably gonna get rocked, because I think they held into account like every single thing in Primordial Malzeno's kit is designed around the fact that you can do those things, right? So like when it does the wing flap, when it puts its wing in front of itself like a shield and it tries to like ram you, he sits there for quite a second and then he jabs with his tail. It's like he's designed to... I feel like it's an overcorrection. It's basically the same thing you're saying, and when I think about the design of the monster, yeah, I think you're quite right.
And so people say that like this is peak Monster Hunter, and they are obviously allowed to think that. If once you master the fight, probably it feels very enjoyable. I know that I felt that way when I started to finally be able to solo farm Alatrion and Fatalis, right? You feel that these are great fights, and it's like you kind of go into some sort of like, what is this thing called? Stockholm Syndrome with the fight. It's like I forget about all the suffering that I've gone through because now I'm like in a good place with it. So it doesn't matter anymore.
That's actually how Diablos became my favorite monster. I literally got walled by that thing for so long that I fell in love with it.
I guess it happens. Yeah, that's fine.
I think that experience is weird though, right? Because if you have people who have overcome the challenge, they then get a part of that familiarity and that Stockholm. They tend to be aggressive and egotistical about it. Not everybody, but you can certainly tell the people who do, because it's like, I don't like to think about things from an advanced or a speedrunner perspective, right? Because I feel that diminishes the entirety of the experience, not just for the higher level players, but as well as the lower level and the intermediate players. Because Alatreon, I literally fainted to it. I got 2 feints off on, and then I killed it my first time, right? Because I had a blast weapon. I was being fucking stupid. Sorry, I didn't mean to, but you know what I mean. Like, I ended up blast weapon. I killed it. It was whatever. But then when you think about all the different scenarios and the people who aren't like me and the people who aren't using the same weapon, I had people when I was talking about the damage checks video about Alatreon, I had people in the comment section like, oh yeah, I was using Hunting Horn. It was so difficult. I used Gunlance, like da-da-da-da. And then you think about somebody who beat the fight, they're probably not going to care because they think that Alatreon's so great and like, they love the fight, so why don't we? I think it does a little bit of harm, but I also think it's a net positive.
Well, there's we're gonna talk about this in the future, but there's value behind adversity, obviously. Okay, well, speaking of like releasing new content and expansions and things, recently we had the title update overview that Capcom released, They basically showed everything that they want to bring to the game soon. And it has sparked a different conversation about the way that Monster Hunter deals or manages content. Like, there's a lot of people that think that the way that the content is being released is becoming too similar to what you see in live service games. Do you think that this is exclusive to Wilds, or has this kind of method happened before in the franchise? Like, should people be worried about this, or it's not really a big deal?
I think people should be worried primarily because the amount of people who are too comfortable with this stuff happening are the ones that are usually just spending the money and walking away. They're not the ones like dealing with it. They beat the game, they come back to the game when an update comes out, and then they just shovel in the money necessary. And it's like not on the title updates, they're free, but to the game itself, right? And it's basically like well, this is a good thing, so why are you against it? Like da 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 da. And that makes it extraordinarily difficult because it feels like you're like, you saw the future, you see in like the prophecies, and nobody's listening until the last moment when everything happens, and you just got to look at them like, I hate to say I told you so, but welcome to the club, right? Because me personally, right, I played every single one of them, so I know if there's cut content, it doesn't take away from the game, right? If there's anything that was not supposed to be in Monster Hunter 1 through 4 or Generations, we don't know, and that's fine, right? Like, because in 4U, we got Fatalis, Crimson Fatalis, and White Fatalis. In regular 4, you had to wait for event quests and things to bring those monsters in. Like, you couldn't even finish the Rathalos Switch Axe or Rathalos weapons because Silver Rathalos was not in 4U's launch. You had to get an event quest to get that monster in order to get the parts necessary to upgrade those weapons. So in some ways, that was kind of incomplete, but Generations comes out, that's not a problem. World comes out, that's not necessarily a problem. Like, yeah, we're getting the pseudo live service method, but as far as that goes, that's fine-ish. It's tolerable, but it's more like along the lines of, okay, it happened this time, don't do it again. But now it's happening again. Like, I know people don't like the whole COVID for Rise thing, but we know COVID had a massive impact on life itself. There's no reason to believe that it wouldn't have had an impact on Rise. So me personally, every TU that came out for Rise was not a title update. It was just them giving us the rest of the game, right? When we had early access, now we have the full game, then Sunbreak. Then Sunbreak did the same thing. Sunbreak had it where you didn't even have an end game after you beat the initial boss, right? They didn't tell us this like Wilds did. Wilds told us like, hey, get ready because there's going to be more stuff and, get your levels up, blah, blah, blah. Rise Sunbreak was like, yep, this is the game, and we're going to add more stuff soon. See you later. And for like a month or so, you didn't have a real end game. It was just talisman grinding again, right? Then they gave you anomaly quests, but then they drip feed you the anomaly quest. So you only had like level 1 anomaly monsters like Arzuros, Great Ragi, Great Izuchi. And then the next update, then you get more of the anomaly monsters. Me personally, bro, like I did love Sunbreak, don't get me wrong, but I love it enough to be able to criticize it. I don't like that approach. I don't want to see that for Wilds. I don't want to see that for the future of the franchise. Some people will argue with you about whether or not World was feature complete, but in my honest opinion, when World released, it had enough. It had its investigations, so you could farm your parts. It had the tempered monsters, so you could farm decorations. And then it had the Elder Dragons, so you could farm Streamstones. I'm not saying that it was a good end game, but it had its end game. It had its arena. It had its maps. It had everything, and it didn't need to use title updates to justify the end. Of course, they intentionally left out upgrades and other decorations, same as Rise. Same as Sunbreak. And I hate that model. I hate it so much, and I'm looking at it in Wilds. And the problem with it in Wilds is that it's much, much more egregious, right? Like, it's so much more noticeable, but calling it out gets you so much flack. Like, people will legit like curse your bloodline just for saying, hey, like, cool game and everything, but and I don't think this is the road that Monster Hunter should take. I strongly, firmly believe that we should have the game ready to go. We should have decent things. The devs should be paying attention to what people like, what people don't like, make an informed decision. I'm not going to filter them on that one. But when it comes down to giving us the rest of the game and justifying it, like, you think about Title Update 1 for Monster Hunter Wilds. I'm not calling that Title Update 1. We just had early access. This is the full game. Because they're giving us the arena, the gathering hub, and other things.
Okay.
And then TU2, I mean, I went back and I really hope I don't spoil anybody with this. I really hope. When the game released, I went back to go look at the actual monster leaks and everything like that. Apparently, there was a lot that was already in the game files that are just now being given back to us.
Yeah, that's
like Zoshia's armor and weapons. That should have already been in the game. I'm calling it out. I don't care if Zoshia is now a title update monster and we're all finally able to fight it now. No, it should have never been the case. We should have been able to fight this thing on repeat and have all of its gear from the get-go.
Right.
And that's my philosophy on it. I don't like this live service-esque model. It makes me upset because I can feel that if it's okay now and people are just willing to spend the money now for the experience to be better later, that's no different than these indie games, these AA games going on early access, and then you having to wait a year or so before you actually get the full thing.
Suddenly the Capcom is trying to close the financial year theory is not so much a theory.
Right. Like that hits so hard. Like when people were telling me that, I was like, there's no way, dude, that can't be.
Well, yeah, I mean, you could argue that if they manage to please the investors now, they will have money to go crazy later on. Maybe, but it is still obviously worrying because of all the things that you just said. About arenas, you mentioned arenas in between, that World had arenas. I think that they're going to bring arena rankings, like a global ranking system for arena quests. How do you feel about those? Are you interested?
You know, I saw a friend of mine linked me a a tweet where the person was like, "Oh, leave that for the speedrunners. Like, let them have their own little niche community. Like, blah 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 blah." And then I was like, world players spotted, right? Because we've always had the global rankings, and here's the thing about it, right? I don't mind the global rankings. What I do mind is the rewards that you get from them. I feel that we shouldn't have ones just because we got a certain rank, like a time rank, like on a leaderboard. I feel that we should get them for having like an S, right? Like Rise, you get certain tickets and items if you got an S on a thing, just like all the other games. If you got an S, you got this. If they bring back the black belt armor, I'm never gonna complain again because that's my favorite armor set. But me personally, right, I don't mind the global leaderboards. I just really hope that they don't attach prizes to it.
Right. There's also the problem of mods. People are expecting these arenas to be completely like cheated, and people are going to be using all kinds of like one-shot mechanics and things to like destroy monsters in 1 second. We still have
100%.
Yeah, we still have to see if it actually happens. I think how can it be so blatant? That's the thing. Like, how can you be so obvious about it and not care? But I guess, I don't know. It will depend on how Capcom answers to that in the end.
I hope they don't go scorched earth because of a couple bad actors. Because obviously you're going to have people who soft cheat where they add in, certain gears and certain things like that to help them promote the thing. And I know that arenas are fixed armor quests, but like you said, like it's basically expected, right? We've seen this in other video games where there's times on leaderboards you see 0 seconds for completion time, and it's like, okay, wow. But they need to be able to realistically deal with this issue because there are certain people who can gut the game, like this person uses a bow gun and this person uses this, and they just kind of go ape shit and they kill a monster like lickety split. But then there's this is definitely cheated. I just hope that their approach to solving this issue does not end up damaging everyone else just because they want to catch this small group of people.
It would be a shame, really. Especially when you have things like, for example, there's a mod that I know that a lot of people complain that the RE engine has this problem where if the monster is too close to the camera, it becomes like transparent, and a lot of people
Gormagala is the worst.
That's the thing. Yeah, a lot of people are losing their minds because of like this problem, especially when fighting Gormagala. And there's a mod that actually makes it more similar to Rise, where you can always see the monster no matter how close it is to the camera, even if it's like covering your hunter, because you still have like this like outline that helps you like know where your hunter is. And the mod really,
Yeah.
like, it does a very good job at solving that problem. And that's the kind of things that you would think, these are very useful. This could be, I don't know, Capcom could even collaborate with Nexus mods to, I don't know, to help them like finish coding the game. I don't it's, so it would be a shame if they do a scorched earth tactic with it, because there are some things that are actually helpful to the experience. Anyway,
for that, it's weird that when you play World and Rise, that when you get pushed up against the wall, the monster doesn't just like go into a ghost. Like they don't go ghost. And then in Wild, you're playing, and it's like, what's the point of having the silhouette when you can't see yourself when the monster just goes invisible?
Yeah, I don't know. It's true that it doesn't help that Gormagala fights on these very like narrow corridors and stuff, and it's just overall a very weird experience. Anyway, going back to the changes to the game, we talked about focus mode and wounds a little bit a while back, but I do want to know your opinion on changes in quality of life. Like, for example, how do you feel about pop-up comps, secret writing, or like field survey rewards? That now you can get a guaranteed gem if you find the proper field survey and so on. How do you feel about those things?
I know that some people feel that these field survey rewards are a bit much. A lot of Mahnster Hunter is, I'm going to kill about 6 of this thing, bring this species close to extinction so I can get a hat, right? Because I need a gem from a Rathalos. And I understand that grind. And sometimes having like a small percentage increase, because back then gems and mantles, 1% drop rate, right? Like, 3% maybe on an event quest, 2% maybe on a broken part. But at the end of the day, it was like, that was kind of what tied into the gameplay loop. And I feel that these field survey rewards still tie into that gameplay loop because they have 3 different kinds of reward features, right? They have the white one, which is the basic. Then they have the brown one, which is like the more rare materials. And then they have you're going to get this, like you're going to get this plate, you're going to get this gem. I don't really have a problem with that necessarily. In fact, I kind of like that feature because if I'm gonna be honest with you, I make every armor set, I make every switch axe, and I make, if you can craft them, I make every decoration. If you can craft them, I make every talisman, right? And that really helps me out to get through it faster. And I know that some people don't, right? And that's fine. I just feel that it really does help the farming aspect, because sometimes not everybody has the ability, especially nowadays, not everyone has the ability to put in as many hours as somebody else might have. Like some guy might come home from work, have 2 hours to play, and guess what? I've hunted a monster for 6 hours straight and never got a gem, never got a mantle. Been there, done that, right? So I'm not really against it. I hate the sacred writing because it just feels so... When I call the dog in Rise, the dog picks me up because it burrowed through the ground and I'm on the dog, right? It's not taking me on a 12.5-year adventure because it just went to pick me up. Like, right, the sacred comes and it kidnaps you. And I've been killed like that before, right? Like I'm on the ground and I need to get out of an attack. The sacred comes and it's like running like every which where trying to pick me up. And then when it actually does pick me up, it rolls me into the danger that I didn't want to be in, and boom, I'm dead, right? And not to mention the navigation. Oh God, it's so bad. Like I can barely see the scout flies first off. Secondly, the mini map little green circle dots, that's hard. I've committed myself to memorizing the map, but when you're trying to, there's a certain part, I believe it's like Camp 13 in the Scarlet Forest, or it's like Camp 8, Camp 9, whatever. You come out of a waterfall, there's a tree. You go up the tree, and then you have to run on these very thin branches, but you can jump off the branches, right? But it's so easy to jump off the branches. I got lost on it like 6 times. Like I just kept going up, falling down, going up, falling down. Awful traversal. I like the pop-up camps, but if I'm gonna be real with you, I kind of had a different expectation for it, right? Because like in my mind, I was like, oh, maybe the pop-up camps in the open beta test are just stationary places, and they're letting you know, like, if you put your pop-up camp here, it's gonna die, or if you put it here, then you're safe. In my mind, I thought the moment we got to play the game, we could put our camps anywhere. Like if I want to put it out in the middle of that lightning field where all the herbivores spawn, then I can put my camp there if I want to, and then it's dangerous, right? Or, oh, I found this really high up ledge that no herbivore should ever be able to get to, right? or no carnivore, no large monster should ever be able to get to. And that would be technically considered safe, or you put it here, it's insecure, blah blah blah. In my mind, I thought we would be able to put them anywhere else. So I think I was eating a little bit more with my eyes than I was in reality. But most of the quality of life changes that they make in this game, I don't necessarily hate. I agree with, but sometimes the execution just falls a little bit flat.
Yeah, I can see that. Especially when like sometimes the wind can blow too hard and your pop-up camp can like fall over, And so it's like you're kind of forced to put them in like really safe places where there's no life forms around. Otherwise, you run the risk of the camp not being able to stand on its ground for more than 5 minutes, right?
Chemitrist has found your pop-up location at Area 10.
Basically, yeah. Okay. Well, so you have a whole video about why weapon changes are important. Yet there are people that think that weapon balance in a PvE game doesn't really matter. Can you explain your perspective on this a bit more?
Yes. The balance for me, right? Like PvE balance is very important, right? Because you're fulfilling a particular fantasy, a particular power fantasy, right? And you think about something like, did you ever play Helldivers?
Sadly, no. I've seen some of my friends play a lot, so I know some things.
There's been a lot of ups and downs to that one, but when it first came out, they had like different weapons that were there. Certain weapons were weak, certain weapons were strong, but they all fulfilled a particular niche, right? And certain weapons and certain people's play styles could be outfitted to where you can solo the hardest difficulty. I'm not going to say the name of it because I don't want to like accidentally demonetize you, but it's basically like, self-deletion mission, right? And so I would solo those
Goblin
missions.
Sapper
I would
fantasy.
Huh?
Goblin Sapper fantasy.
Yes. Yeah. And it's like I would solo those missions by myself. I would pick up the super rare, the purple material, the gatherable that you're supposed to get. Well, not you're supposed to, but you can find them. I would pick those up because the whole point of it, right? You have particular power fantasies. You have easy, and then you can just mow down everything that exists. You don't have to care about nothing. If a Bile Titan spawns, you can probably shoot it to death. Whatever, right? And the higher up you get, the more thoughtful you have to be in your actions. On that difficulty, you should not be engaging anything for anything. Like if it's a patrol, there's probably 2 more patrols to your side of you. You get caught in this one battle, you can get caught in 12. You run out of ammunition, you're screwed, right? And that's a very thoughtful process to it. But they kind of went a little bit ham and they nerfed a lot of weapons, which made that power fantasy, and not just the power fantasy, but the fun of playing in those modes much, much more difficult. And for me, when you're playing these things, right, you can't make something too weak or too strong. You can't change something too little or too much because the impact is quite literally devastating, right? Like you take Gunlance and Charge Blade in Wilds. Oh my God. You can tell whoever's on the weapon design team, that guy's a Gunlance main. He does not care about any other weapon. That guy's a Gunlance main. You can't convince me otherwise. Those changes are so good. I sat there and I saw moving wide sweep and being able to propel yourself with the shells and being able to reload and guard at the same time. A feature that was present in Rise, but as like a switch skill, but now it's like a staple, like it's built in. You can quick reload and guard. You can standing reload and guard. It's so many things that fulfills, and I don't think people recognize this. Like I know people think, haha, big boomies, big fun, but you think Gunlance feels like a walking fortress. Like I am a tank and I'm going out there and I'm just plowing down everything that's like, if it has a pulse, it's dying, right? And Gunlance fulfills that. But then you think about something like Charge Blade, right? They streamlined the hell out of Charge Blade. And I know some people agree with the idea. I don't, because to me, I love the idea of freedom of choice. In every video, I say that you don't have to play a meta set. You don't have to play a comfort set. You can play whatever you want, right? But so long as it's for you, not for everybody else. So you cannot activate Savage Axe manually in this game unless you get a wound, unless you power clash, and unless you perfect guard while the shield is charged, I believe. I don't really play Charge Blade that much in this game. My friend does, but
I'm
You
not
have
sure
to
if,
manually access it.
sorry, yeah, just go ahead. Just
No, no, keep going.
technicalities.
You were saying what?
No, I'm not sure if like Power Clash can activate Savage Axe, but mounting attack will do it. And I know a lot of people that they go for the mounting attack even if it's a bit impractical, simply because it's the guaranteed Savage Axe activation, you know?
And then what happens when you're in multiplayer? Right?
Yeah.
It's a bit rough because then now you're not only you're competing with other people for a part of your kit. I have two friends that I play with religiously. One's an Insect Glaive user. The other one's, like I said, is a Charge Blade user. Our Insect Glaive user friend is a wound fiend. We cannot get wounds if that guy is breathing. Like, it is, if he's not on the ground or he's not back at camp, we can't get wounds.
I mean,
and it's difficult because
I can see why. I'm sorry to interrupt you. It's just it's this weird situation where Glaive doesn't get to play the full kit of what they can do unless they have extracts. And they made it so like focus strikes gives you full extracts, and you can loop the strongest combo that you have with breaking wounds. So it's kind of intended that you go for them. But I don't know, multiplayer is kind of screwed because it's like, yeah, Charge Blade, you made a good point. You have this interaction where Savage Axe is, you cannot really access it whenever you want. But if you go to multiplayer and there's a dual blades and a bow or an Insect Glaive, you're not going to see wounds at all. So I don't know. It's just I don't think that people are very aware yet of like the needs of different weapons when it comes to wounds.
Yeah, we're definitely in the honeymoon phase because me personally, right, like being able to manually access it in World by just hitting L2 after charging the files, and then in Rise having the switch skill. Now, I'm not going to say it like it is, but I kind of feel like Rise should have just had it like off rip so that you can have all three, but they were doing their own thing. That's fine. And to come to this game, right, not only the fact that you can't just access Savage Axe, you can't even SAED off neutral. And some people think that's fantastic, but if you ask me, Savage Axe, AED follow-up, that stuff works perfectly for the impact files because you want the directed files onto particular parts to explode. That's not to say that element file can't do that, but it's to say that impact file benefits from it greater. Just like how element file benefits more from SAED. But now in this game, you're forced to have to go through AED to do SAED. SAED already takes a lot of time to start up, execute, and recover from. So now I have to put in this extra loop on top of it, and I'm losing a file explosion because this new overcharging shield thing doesn't actually take away from the overcharge. It takes away from a full file. I just feel like nothing should stop us from being able to do the things that we do. And yet you look at things like Switch Axe, you compare Gunlance, Charge Blade, Switch Axe. It feels like everybody and their mother gave love to Gunlance. And it feels like they kind of like redhead stepchild, like gave it the bare necessity. Ah, fine, here's a new move. Like, oh, you know, here you can take this superpower move and, you know, have it loop into this other attack and give yourself an infinite combo basically. And you know, there seems to be more and more options of your kit and how you can exploit certain parts of your kit. But when you take away from things like Gunlance got the perfect one, they got everything added. That was perfect. But then you think about the options Charge Blade has, you think about the options Switch Axe has. Both of those, they both have like, what's the right way to say it? There's a design intent that I don't feel meets the standards of the weapons that, or the versions of the weapon that came before it. So I feel that when you balance out these games, especially for PvE, I feel that you should be having a particular level of power that's necessary. We did nerf Charge Blade before because it was very strong in 4, and that's fine. It's still a very popular weapon, still a very strong weapon, but it wasn't anything like this. And I feel that when the devs make these decisions to change weapons in ways that go against their core design, I feel that that is so detrimental, right? Because Great Sword got True Charge Slash. You still have to get to True Charge Slash, but it's still a part of that weapon's kit because a lot of it is knowing when and how to use it. Great Sword has a big learning curve when it goes from beginner to advanced, but I just don't like when they needlessly make changes that don't make sense, and then people have to deal with that.
Right. So maybe in a way, like what matters in the end is like identity in these weapons, because I do think that people get very like attached to a specific design, and then things about the weapon have or come with an identity. For example, a lot of people were outraged that the aerial bounce from Glaive was removed, and then they put it back, obviously. And I'm not sure if everybody was happy after that, because then also there's a lot of people saying that now you're pretty much forced to like do the same move over and over with like rising spiral slash and whatever, and that has taken away from the identity of the weapon. I feel that Insect Glaive is the best it has ever been, but then again, I'm relatively new to the game, so I cannot really relate to that, maybe to that trajectory that people have, that journey that people take with the different weapons. And so maybe, like, what I'm getting from what you're saying is that, like, people have this expectation to be able to have the same fantasy, the same experience. And then the changes come and it completely overrides that possibility.
Yeah, in a way, yeah. Primarily because you know what Gunlance can do. Maybe it's not the best at what it was doing. It was basically just Lance with shells, basically, and like 2 new attacks, wide sweep and overhead smash. And then you come to a game like this, and this is just fantastic. But people who've played the Charge Blade for a long time, they know Charge Blade. This should not be Charge Blade.
Interesting. Well, yeah, going over some other things that have also changed that don't really have to do with the weapons. It seems that there are more and more options to circumvent the use of specific items and to reduce preparation before a hunt now in Wilds. While the line between meaningful adversity and inconvenience can be hard to trace, where do you place that line?
It's kind of hard for me because, like, I remember I mentioned earlier how once a quest is over, you run to the chest, you do everything you need to do, and then you run back to the thing to start a new quest. That's literally how I'll do it. Like, yeah. I could tell you, if you look at my menu or my item pouch for most of my hunts, it's probably mega potions, max potions, and then all the attack increasing items, and I'm done. Right? Like, I don't even carry flash bombs, sonic bombs. I don't carry any of that stuff on me unless like maybe the team requires it. Like, oh, we're gonna fight Bloodbath Diablos, you better have your sonics and flashes on ready. Like, but I'm not really sure that I have a place to talk about this much, because like all Mahnster Hunter games, like even Rise, like I know people like to say Rise doesn't, but every Mahnster Hunter game has a level of preparation, right? And that comes in the form of items, that comes in the form of meals, right? You consider what you're going to do for the next hunt, and then you go from there, right? So like the more you do it, the more certain you are, the faster you'll get at it, right? Like it's just like it's repetition, you're not even thinking about it, right? But when it comes down to being in the camp, being able to swap your weapons, like I know that's one of the things that reduces preparation is, oh, I accidentally went on a quest, didn't have any items. That's fine. I can just go to the camp and I can refill my items from there. Or, oh, I ran out of flash bombs. Rather than going around in the environment and looking for flash bugs, you just go back to camp, get your flash bugs, go back to the hunt, right? And it's very confusing, right? Because at the same time, they want you to go out and they want you to do these things, but then they make it so that you're unintentionally inconvenienced and then you have to go do these kinds of things, right? Because like think about it like this, right? I don't know if you've noticed this. What is the point of hot and cold drinks if you have a bug that can do the same effect sitting right outside of every exit? Right? Like you leaving, yeah, and there's a plant there for hot pepper, but I'm not going to do the plant for the hot pepper because that bug is on the wall, and it's the same thing.
Yeah, and it's not so only it's like, it helps you get rid of the problem, it even heals you. I don't know if you know this, but like
it heals you?
It heals you, yeah.
Oh, snap. I got to go look at that because that's crazy. Yeah, that's how I see it, really. Like, I feel that it kind of like cannibalizes itself. I say that quite a lot, but I feel that a lot of these things cannibalize themselves because we're able to circumvent having to do these things for these items, right? Like, you know, you don't need to craft sonic bombs. You could just yank it off the throat of this bird in the sky, right? Like,
okay. Well, it's true. I don't know. Itemization in general is a bit weird right now. Just because, like, usually you would want to have like flashes and sonic bombs and like luring pods and all of that, but There's also pretty much everything that you need for a hunt. You can find it like close to the place where you fight usually. So it's like, is there any point in gathering and like exploring or trying to farm? Even like trading, for example, the trading system, I think it's horrible. It doesn't really add any value. It's just like, is it really worth it to go around farming all these trade items if the offers are just terrible, you know?
Yeah, they don't really have all the items accessible. Like, if I just want a straight down run of just full honey, because like usually like I did in Rise, I had like honey max to like 9999, and then I would go for the seeds, and then I would go for something else, right? Like you need excite shrooms and like something else to make luring pods, bitter bug broth, but not every place offers bitter. You know what I mean?
Bug juice.
So,
yes.
Yes. So it's kind of like confusing when you want me to engage with this content. You want me to talk to Nada, to go trade with these villagers so that I can get these items, but you make these items a little bit more difficult to acquire. But then you give me ways to get around it because I can just find that stuff, like a better version of it out in the field. Not luring pods specifically, but like you were saying.
Yeah. Well, no, I mean, there's a lot of endemic life that will work as a trap now. Like there's these thunderbugs that get together sometimes and they are flying around, and if the monster steps on them, they will get like electrocuted and stuff. And so it's like,
did you know if you capture a thunderbug, it becomes a shock trap in your inventory?
No. Okay. Yeah, another example then. Yes. Interesting.
Only the cloud of them, not the ones on the wall. The cloud of them in the Windward Plains.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Nice to know, actually. Okay, well, let's move on now to things that have more to do with being like a content creator and the things that you do with your content. For you, how has it been to be a content creator for Mahnster Hunter?
Absolutely terrible.
What?
I'm kidding. No, it has its ups and downs, but like my work-life balance is horrible. Like my home situation doesn't really work in my favor, and like I find myself struggling like mentally when it comes to these things. And I'm trying basically to compete with established creators who can pump out quality, or not quality, but can pop out quantity as opposed to my quality. And I don't really have that level of recognition, right? So I can see things like SD Shepherd or Michael MH, and they're just chucking videos out. Like sometimes it's wrong. Sometimes it's like, who would even think about this? Sometimes it's like, okay, you might have a point here, but your execution is terrible. But meanwhile, I'm doing basically the same thing, if not better. Like, no offense to them. And I'm not trying to like toot my own horn, but it's like, I'm definitely feeling the effects of the algorithm, right? Like, and the worst part is being kind and open to discussion. And I have these discussion videos. Like, I'm not just a guide channel per se. Like, I started off doing speed runs to get myself in the door of content creation while I was learning to create content, because I literally learn things as I'm doing something else, right? So I was doing speed runs. I'm over here listening to a video on the side about how to do certain things in Adobe Premiere and Adobe After Effects and how to do this with Photoshop. And then I look at other people and it's a little bit demoralizing. And I know you should never compare yourself to the best that others can do. You should always compare yourself to the best that you can do. But I can't help but feel a little bit demoralized when I make a guide. It took me like 2 weeks because I did the research. I had to get the footage. I had to fact check everything that I was doing. I had to write the script, and I usually write like 2 or 3 scripts, but
I can understand you completely. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like I get a lot of love in my comments, like even for the discussion videos, even though there's a lot of people out there, like I can show you like so many comments of people who just come off rip, just hostile. And it means nothing to me because I'll just banter back. Like, it is what it is. Like, you're not going to ruin my day just because you can't think beyond like your single digit IQ. Right. But like, I get so much love in my comments that I'm willing to sacrifice what little I have that I'm working with here just to give them one more day of Mahnster Hunter. So far, it's kind of like a mixed feeling. Like, I'm appreciating all the support and love that I'm getting. And on the other end, I can't help but be envious.
Yeah, I can understand that. Well, is there anything that you offer to the Monster Hunter community that you think should be more valued, maybe?
That comes specifically from me.
Yeah, like with the content that you make, is there any particular type of content that for you would like it to be more valued by the community?
My insight on the topics that I discuss. And I also hope that I can at least have a space where people can feel comfortable expressing their experiences with me and being able to talk about the things that, that they found frustrating, as opposed to going somewhere like Twitter, Reddit, and other places and being attacked just for thinking a certain way. Like I have personal preferences. Like I have a tier list of the things that I personally like. And people will be like, "You hate World, you suck." Of course you're a Rise lover. And it's like, yo, dude, like relax. If you just talk to me, I will talk back to you like a human being. But if you want to act like a dog, you can get put down like a dog, right? And it's really frustrating because I feel that for the information that I provide outside of my discussion-based videos, I would really, really hope that people could come and be able to just talk about the things in a non-hostile manner, be able to talk about the things that they've experienced.
Mm. Yeah, well, you do bring very valuable information with the content that you make. I was actually surprised that like you really show some of the really cool intricacies of Monster Hunter in your videos. And you kind of help lifting the veil of Monster Hunter's more nuanced mechanics. But do you think that there's any value behind crossing that veil on your own as a player without any kind of like external help?
Yeah, actually, there definitely is, because I think that's represented best. Like you hear it all the time when people are like, "Yo, the game finally clicked," right? Like you heard people say that before. So it's like you literally have it where that feeling right there to me is great. Like if you can get there without needing any assistance, just chef's kiss, right? And the value behind that is the gratification you get from learning that stuff on your own, taking the time to put in that work. And I would say that goes for literally anything, like work, life, like maybe going to the gym, doing certain things. That understanding where you cross that path on your own, I think that's where the value comes in. It's just knowing that you managed to do it yourself, right? I'm only there for people who maybe they're almost there, or maybe they have no idea where to start. I can be that bridge to maybe understanding more or getting to that point where they can start to make those decisions or those connecting those dots better. But as an experience altogether, I think that I think people should have that it clicked moment. I think that that's where the value comes
For
from.
sure, yeah. I do think that, there's extreme satisfaction to be had when you kind of figure something out or how something works in the game, especially when you can like start using it in your favor. And I think that in general, like this is the way that I approach things, and I feel like especially people who are looking to improve maybe can do something similar, and that is you give the game a chance to, or you give yourself a chance to figure out the game on your own first, so that you can have your own experience, you draw your own conclusions, but then you try to look for an external like opinion or point of view, or you try to look for people that are better than you to learn from them. Because at least I don't think that I can like really figure everything out from the get-go. So eventually I go outside for like to see if anybody else can like teach me something new in the end. And then I go back to my own experience and I experiment with what I have learned. But the willingness to go and to like do your own experimentation, I think, is very valuable. It's, as you said, is what makes the it clicked moment, basically. Excellent. Well, I've seen a lot of the videos that you do. They explain some of the very basic yet very important mechanics of Monster Hunter, but do you know if there's any way to find some of that information that you share in game at the moment?
I really wish there are some things that you can find, like status ailments and ooh, that came out from the soul. 1 second. Okay, my bad. Like that, the shrimp was coming to fight me. So basically, like a lot of the stuff that you could find in game, right? Like you could open up a hunter's notes and find certain things like elemental blights and like what your weapon can do and stuff like that, but they're so bare bones, right? Like they barely show you any of the intricacies. Like how many people would know that if you evaded a bunch of times you could remove dragon blight and water blight? Not many, right? Because it's not really something that's explicitly stated. Sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. There's also certain things like I personally feel like if they wanted to hire me to make a training mode or a training mode actually, I could do that because some people don't know. Okay, I hit the monster X amount of times, it fell over. Why? Game doesn't teach you that kind of stuff, right? Game doesn't teach you why the monster gets mad. Game doesn't teach you, if I do this with my weapon, then if I do X, Y happens. Game doesn't really teach you any of that. It just kind of throws you in and goes, good luck, and then they just drive off. And you're out in the middle of the like cabin in the woods, like Jason Voorhees is coming at you and they're telling you to survive. Like that's kind of difficult. But I don't think the game really game doesn't do a good job of presenting that information.
Yeah. It's weird also because sometimes the game goes, okay, so this monster, he's weak to fire. And then you bring your fire weapon, you hit the monster, like maybe you go with Charge Blade, and you hit the monster with a huge SAD. And every file deals like 50 damage, but for some reason one file deals like 200. You're like what, right? And it's like, oh, actually the game has something that we call hit zones, right? And they have different values, and like you have no idea how to, I mean, at least in the game there's nowhere to find that. And it's weird because you have that in Rise, I remember.
Rise did it, and the one thing I still remember, I'm still angry at Rise for doing this. They added the hit zone values only for base state. So monsters like Valstrax, when they become enraged, people don't know this. When Valstrax becomes enraged, it loses all elemental weaknesses except on its forelegs and its wings at sometimes. But some people don't know that. So they'll be using like an elemental weapon and they'll be smacking it in the face, doing 100, 200, and then all of a sudden it just goes down to 10 or 20, and you're like, whoa, like what happened? I think that if they're going to do the hit zone values again, they need to do it for every state instead of just telling you off rip like, yeah, this is just base state, leave it at that.
It's kind of sad also because I think that there could be a really cool fantasy behind the idea of completing your hunter's notes. I think obviously like in World, for example, as you hunt the monsters more and more, they start to give you more detailed information. They could play into the whole like fantasy of documenting your findings and your discoveries by showing you more specific information about the monster the more you hunt them, right? To the point that you start to unlock the information behind hit zone values and maybe what type of damage it will make this monster topple in the special state or whatever. Like all of those things I think could be there. I have no idea why like they resort to not show that. But as you say, it's just like the hunter notes are a bit bare bones, basically. It's pretty much what you said.
That has got to be the best justification for writing things down in our hunter's notes I have ever heard. Because the old way that you used to figure out a monster was like weak to something, like if it was physically weak to something like raw, you hit a part. If you had hit pause, oh yeah, it was in, like, right? But if you hit something and your weapon just glided through like butter, oh, it was not weak, right? And then if you tried to figure out elemental weaknesses, you had to go to the blacksmith, look at the armor and say, oh, Nargacuga's got a -5 to thunder and a -3 to fire, so it's weakest to thunder or weak to fire. But being able to fill that information, that is such a great idea, actually. They gotta hire you because that was a good idea.
Like just thinking from like the whole scholar fantasy, right? You're trying to fill in your Pokédex with information, kind of. I don't know. I feel like it would be great to teach players these more obscure mechanics, or at least give you an incentive to engage with them. Because right now, for example, if you are not presented with this information, sometimes you can play the game, and which is to some degree, it's also a good thing, right? This is something that we discussed or we mentioned at some point with Josie also. It's that you can be clueless about Monster Hunter and you still can have a lot of fun with it. I think that's great. That's incredible. But yeah, some people do want to, as they say, get good, right?
There's also the people who want to get immersed in it. So that would also help those types of players out, because then they wouldn't go look up guides or things like that. They just play the game and figure that stuff out too.
Yeah. Well, okay. So right now there's like a huge influx of players coming into the franchise, but something that is more present now more than ever, I think, is this like huge disconnect between newer and older players. Do you think that we have actually like maybe gone too far? Like the people that are veterans in Monster Hunter, are we like too deep into the rabbit hole? Because you see, like, new players don't understand the game the same way that we do. And there's this whole argument that, oh, we have been playing this game for too long, so now that is why it is too easy. So do you think that it's actually the case of people having too much experience? Or is Monster Hunter actually a bit dense?
There's certainly a lot of variables that go into this. So like we already know this, right? A strong majority of the people that are coming into Monster Hunter are coming specifically from World and from Wilds, right? Like World, it kind of opened the door. Wilds flung that thing open and started kidnapping people, right? And their viewpoint on the series is based on those two games. Now, I have a slur. I have a slur that I call people who started in World.
Is it the Fivers thing?
No, it's even worse, bro.
Okay.
Like if they started in World and they act haughty or they dismiss you or they call you like a Gen 1 or something like that, I call them worldlets, right? Because they act like they know everything, and it's like, man, you better sit down. Like, who are you talking to, bro? I've earned these stripes, right? But they'll sit there and they'll call Rise goofy, cartoony, arcadey, simply because it doesn't look, play, and feel like World, right? And then you get the people who are coming into Wilds and they're like, oh, somebody will have an idea, and I've seen this so many times. It makes me so angry. And it's like you look down their history. I've been that stalker just to confirm like the way that I've been feeling.
Okay.
So I'll go through somebody's profile, and like somebody will say something like, "Oh, Capcom doesn't need to listen to these type of people." And then you roll down your profile, and you're like, "Oh yeah, you just got into Mahnster Hunter, so you're literally like a baby. Like you're literally throwing a temper tantrum at the people who might possibly know what they're talking about." And it's like, okay, you get somebody who's like crazy radical. Like this also goes to the other side of the extreme, right? Like you have your worldlets, and then you have your elitists, the people who started like way back when. Like I got a comment, and I put it up in one of my videos, the weapon changes videos, not the weapon changes videos, the developer changes. Sorry, for the Switch axe. And I put up the comment because the guy was like, "Oh, I started in Monster Hunter 1, and like, if people nowadays got Monster Hunter Tri, they would be bitching their head off and blah blah blah." Because, and it's like, all right, yeah, to be fair, they have the right to, because imagine starting with like, great sword, long sword, hunting horn, hammer, lance, gun lance, bow, and the bow guns, right? And then you just completely gut and you remove gun lance, long sword, dual blades, and bow. And hunting horn. Did I say that already? Whatever. Basically, you took out things that would make people play the game because they're mains of that weapon, and then you're just supposed to tell them to settle for less? Oh, nah, bro. Like, that's not okay. Like, there's elitists, and then there's the worldlets. And it's like,
okay.
Me personally, they need to stop trying to pamper us, right? Like, I understand that they want more people to come in, but we are not the type of people that they should be trying to pamper, right? Like they need to make stuff that's good for their native population, like for the Japanese, because they're the ones that kept the series afloat for this long. And I guess now that they got investors, in reality, you make a great experience, the players will keep you afloat, the investors will keep whatever's going on. But if you try to capitulate to the investors, you end up creating an environment where they matter more than the people who are actually giving you all that money, right? Like the people who make up that sale, you're going to turn them off, then you're not going to meet your investor goals, right? So it's like, to me, right, they're good. It's good that we have this mix of new and old players. It's bad that the interactions we have are so like they're so polarizing. And it's like, you know, the new players think that it should go this way because this is how they started the series. The old players think it should go this way because this is how they started the series. And like, I don't know what we can do at this point because I feel like we should be able to execute, or we should be able to propose our beliefs, our ideas, and our feelings about the series without having to come to blows about it. Right. And I think that in today's day and age, we can't do that. Right. You have to be either one or the other. So when we have this disconnect, we're not able to solve it. And I don't know if there's ever going to be a bridge that's going to bring us together unless somebody gets like put on a cross. Maybe I'll let that be me. I'll let myself get nailed to the cross if it means everybody gets to come together, you know? But like, we all have different viewpoints on how these things go, right? And that disconnect is primarily because of how we feel these things should be. And when you put this up in the open space for people to discuss, it kind of gets a little bit turbulent.
Yeah. I guess it's like what you say. At some point, we have to learn how to live with one another.
Yeah.
I guess only time will tell if we will find the answer for that. But I think for now, at least, we are not in such a bad state. I feel like, yeah, there's a lot of polarizing opinions, but I don't think that people are actually being like super aggressive or completely like, I'm not sure if like the word is absolutist about it.
I think so.
Oh, well, maybe in some spaces, sure.
I meant like the word, like I think the word.
Okay. Right, yeah. But that's the thing. It's like, at least for now, yeah, a lot of people are outraged about different reasons, but there's also a lot of people that are super glad with the direction that the game is taking. So you win, lose. I mean, you win some, you lose some. Okay, well, speaking of being outraged, what is the most insane take that you have heard about Wilds so far?
That it's complete.
All right. Fair. Yeah, no. Not very defendable. But yeah. Well, that was a very
I don't know why
short,
these people think
yeah,
that.
no, you basically gave me the full answer there. Not much I can say about that. Anyway, getting close to the end here, do you have any advice for the people who are looking to get better at the game?
Yes, subscribe to my channel.
Honestly, I vouch for that. I went to your channel, I saw some of your videos. They were incredible bits of information. Like I will, like, I don't know. It's so many things that were so, or could be so essential to the gameplay were very well explained in your videos. So, you know, I'm not even mad. Like, self-promote all you want.
I mean, like, I could say that you really need to absorb everything that you can, right? Like, that to me is the most important, right? Because when you're fighting a monster, the only difference is how it behaves. But the systems behind it are all important. If you're just smacking the monster willy-nilly, you're not understanding. Like, I don't know how many people here play Slay the Spire. That's one of my favorite games in existence. And there's a certain level of, you cannot just sit here and recklessly attack every turn. You have to be able to, you know, at least in the beginning stages, before you get like roided out of your mind, you have to be able to fight and keep yourself alive. If you're just sitting there swinging willy-nilly and not understanding why this thing is doing this, or, you know, why is the legal whatever that thing is that comes out of the crab leg thingy, if it can't, it attacks 20 first turn, second turn 20, then it reduces your strength and your dexterity on the third turn, and then it repeats this. If you don't understand why that's happening, you're not really playing the game. The game's playing you, right? So fight the same monster repeatedly. Try to learn fundamentals, like what your weapon can do, when to poke, how long you have to punish, what monsters do, like what their actions are, like what they do. Like Rathian, you all know Rathian does its backflip, tail sweep, whatever. It's going to sit there and it's going to make a roar noise. It's going to posture itself, then it's going to backflip kick or backflip. There's no reason why that should be a surprise to people, right? You learn the combat because Mahnster Hunter is, first and foremost, an action game. It is a hunting action game before it is Pokemon Snap, before it's picture taking simulator, before it's in a trophy hunter game, before it's all these other things. It is a hunting action game first. And secondly, Rathian, screw that guy. Rathian is your best friend when it comes to learning the game. I know everybody likes to say Jan Kutku is the Mahnster Hunter sensei. Fight Rathian. Just fight Rathian on repeat. You'll start to understand the whole game. Trust me.
Yeah. Rathian is actually the monster that started to like open my eyes with patterns like, well, first with like attack sequences. And the other one was like with thresholds. You know, like when you hit Rathian on the head and then on the legs for a few times, there's very high chances of it toppling. And so you can start to kind of like interchange these hit zones to make Rathian topple and topple over and over. I'm not sure if this was only specific to World, but that's where I had my first experience with fighting that monster in particular. And the posturing is also a really good advice. I feel like it is one of the best design aspects of Monster Hunter. They really, really tell you what they are going to do with their posture. Sometimes it's very quick, but it's like it is really telling. Like if you can start to identify those small details, it is true that you can really start to pick up on these things and incorporate them into your gameplay. That was great advice. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Well, I think we are almost at the end here. Is there any goals that you have within the game or with your channel moving forward to this year?
Within the game, I pretty much completed everything I want to, other than talismans coming out for the TUs. Anytime Mizutsune and Lagiacrus come out, I'm gonna have that weapon in full armor set. For my channel, though, I do actually have two goals. One is to become a Capcom creator by the time the next Mahnster Hunter game is announced, because I swear to God, I called it. I bought a red PlayStation 5 controller like 2 years ago. Like when Sunbreak came out, I bought a red PlayStation 5 controller. I said, next Mahnster Hunter game is going to be on PlayStation. I can feel it. Well, it was on PlayStation and everything else, but I got it on PlayStation anyway. So
nice.
I know the next one's probably going to be on the Switch too. It's probably going to be on something else. But I'd love to become a Capcom creator because I feel that the level of quality that I provide in my videos, at the very least, if I could just get an early access copy, or maybe I could get more invitations to like events and things like that, I could talk about the Switch acts, because primarily, especially during the TGS and things like that, you didn't really get to see Switch acts played all that much. And the people that did play Switch acts, well, they weren't very good. And that's not to say anything against them, but sometimes people want to know more, right? And so I feel that if I can at least get there, then it's a shoo-in. Like we can get that Switch acts information on deck. As for the second goal, I want to finish learning Japanese so I can hold a conversation with a Japanese person about Mahnster Hunter.
Damn, that would be amazing.
Right?
Yeah.
I can't wait.
Nice. Yeah, looking forward to it as well. Okay, perfect. Yeah, very ambitious, but I think that you deserve it. With the work that you're putting out.
Thank you.
I can see Capcom being interested in like working with you, because like you're able to bring so much valuable information and deconstruct it in a way that is understandable for like pretty much anyone, right? And there's a lot of value behind that. So I do wish you the best with that endeavor. And with this, we can finish the podcast interview, whatever we call these things. Is there anything else that you would like to say to the community to close?
I'm sorry that it takes me so long to produce content. I'm really trying my best, and especially working with what I've got, trying to deliver with the same quality that people know me for. And I hope that in my absences that people could rewatch my videos or spread my videos to those who need it. And I thank you for any support from previously and to now. And just know that I'm a reasonable person, and I just want to hear your thoughts as long as you're not hostile.
Right, perfect. Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Mahnster Hunter. It was a pleasure to have you today in this episode. And that is where my OBS decided to betray me. But anyways, that part at the end was just me showing my appreciation to Mahnster Hunter for having accepted my invitation to join the podcast. So fortunately, we didn't miss anything important. Once again, I cannot thank you guys enough, and please go check Mahnster Hunter's channel. He really has a level of quality that you rarely find in videos that are meant to help players get better at the game. So let's show him some appreciation. Go sub to his channel, go watch his videos because they are a great service to the community. And hey, SwitchX mains, Mahnster Hunter is cooking a weapon guide, so keep an eye out because that is going to be good stuff. With that, we can finish today's episode of The Curious Hunter. Don't forget to consider doing any of the things shown in the stickers, and as for me, I'll await your comments to see what you guys think. As always, my name is Sun, and until next time.